This meeting is being recorded.
Hey guys, I just wanted to cover something here. On the 4th of July, I wrote a post talking about the Constitution and more specifically how I wrote my first ever business constitution. Now, this concept wasn't really on my radar, not something I really thought about, it just kind of worked out that way. I always try to, tie in some type of topic or post to the national holiday or whatever's going on. Could be something that's trending, what have you. Obviously, 4th of July is a big thing for a lot of Americans and an important date in history. More specifically to me, and kind of what I wrote about, and I'll share my screen here real quick, and we'll go through it. But I did this post on the 4th here, the one that's on my screen. You can see the image there of the Constitution is the guide, which I never will abandon. George Washington, obviously a great individual, as well as one of the core founding fathers, right? And I kind of wrote this little post here about, um, I'm not super political per se, but as I said before, and I'm sure I'll say it again, I consider myself a constitutionalist. I truly believe that the United States Constitution is the greatest document ever written. And then as I went on to say, as I bring this, the reason I bring this up outside of the obvious, national holiday, have you ever considered writing your own constitution, your business constitution, that is, right? And I never really thought of mine that way until I kind of wrote it in that format. I have mine segmented, as I say in here, into about 3 separate sections. Now, these are all things that are imperative in my business regardless, but I've kind of combined them into this format. So I talk about my core values. You'll see that when I go into the document here, but these are 4 key aspects that need to be present in my business regardless. And that's very, very important. Vision and purpose. As I say here, everybody's crafting their offers, their knowledge gaps, their hooks, their messaging, their creative, yada, 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 but they don't ever really focus on the bigger vision or purpose, which I talk about a little. And that's exactly why and how people often and most times burn out and fail. And then non-negotiables, which you guys have heard me talk about quite a bit. I have non-negotiables in my personal life, in my fitness goals, in my business, and those are basically tasks, activities, duties, and responsibilities that are not optional but mandatory, right? And as I go on to say, little did I know within these 3 categories, I kind of had my own business constitution, but it's only when I properly structured it and documented it in that format, I guess it became official. As I went on to say here, which has now been kind of done, at least for now. I'm still tweaking mine a little bit, but happy to share the document. And then if you scroll down in the comments, the document's there. It'll also be in the description here if you're watching this on YouTube. More specifically, let's go into that document, right? So this is kind of what I came up with for my business constitution, and this is super important. I didn't write this document just to write it. I wrote it with an intent and a specific objective behind it, as I do with almost anything I do. But it basically says, we the business shall operate in the best interest of the prospecting consumer first and foremost. We shall and will only create and offer products to our market that solve problems, deliver value, and offer a clear benefit and or return to the buyer. When a prospect isn't the best fit or ideal fit for our programs, we will not make an offer or present price. Instead, we shall send a referral to whoever is the best fit to help, or send free resources and help build them up to the point whereas they may be able to work with us, or we may be able to help them in a closer capacity at a later date in the future. So as we all know, the Constitution has the Bill of Rights and the initial 10 amendments. And I came up with my 10 amendments or my 10 business imperative orders. It's imperative that this stuff is in the business. And these are the 10 things that my company, my business, and basically any company or business I'm involved in will be revolving around these aspects and evolving from these aspects as well. So core values, as I mentioned, for me, these are super important. And I've talked about these individually. Now, for me, being unfiltered certainly has its pros and cons, but that's part of my business. And I lose a big part of me if I'm not that, and my branding and my personality. So again, not everybody, and I don't always have to be, and I don't plan to be the face of my business necessarily, but it doesn't mean I'm going to not say things that I really feel just because I'm worried about the ramifications it may have on my business. I found you're better off taking a stand on things and getting people to follow you that also believe in that stance rather than biting your tongue and working with a bunch of people that you have nothing morally, ethically, or no values aligned, right? Transparency is super important. Work ethic comes into everything I do. And one of the biggest factors behind success, but more importantly, one of the things I noticed in humans, generally speaking, to live a better, more fulfilled life is the actions and the connections that we make. Actions being, a lot of people talk a big game. I'm your friend. I'm there to support you. But your actions behind that and actually the doing is what makes people buy in. And connections are imperative, whether that's acquaintances, whether that's networking, whether that's your inner circle, whether that's sometimes those connections. And a big part of this is actually limiting who comes into your circle and having standards for who's around you. So there's all kinds of aspects to that. Number two, come from a place of service first and always. Don't come from a place of I need a sale, I need to make money, I don't care if this can help them. Always be in their best interest and coming from a place of service. As I talked about on the previous post, constantly be aligned with and assessing the bigger vision and purpose, and let that be the guide as to the path that your business follows. This is something myself and Fred talk about pretty frequently, and you'll hear more about with our kind of vision to victory, product and offers and everything we do with helping creators, influencers, entrepreneurs, purpose-based individuals that didn't actually define their vision. It's a big aspect as to why people and how people are burning out, how they're failing, how they've had a level of success, and then they get into scale mode and they're not operating right. A lot of that goes back to that. Number four, one thing I've realized and I put into here that I think is really important is I believe that somebody's sheer genuineness and their authenticity are actually the best true forms of attraction and leadership. And in a sense, they're their own form of currency, especially right now when we're talking about branding, marketing, authority, credibility. Those are aspects that build that currency with your market and your audience. So keep that in mind. I put into mind, this is very, very important and something that probably wouldn't have been in this if I'd written a business constitution a couple of years ago. But the business must be adaptable, malleable, innovative, creative, open to changes and new ideas, particularly geared toward the areas of efficiency, growth, technology, customer journey and experience, and the strategy and approach that we deploy and implement into the companies. Humility and gratitude, number six, are required to succeed in our business mission. Treat the team members and the clients, prospects, etc., as the lifeblood of the company and the business. And that's going to solve a lot of problems that may never exist if you're never exist, but may exist if you're not exemplifying the humility and gratitude and really building that into who you are and who your business is. Now, number seven, communication, leadership, and the proper feedback and optimization loop are the three keys to lead a business operator from growth mode to scale mode. Growth mode to scale mode. Say it again, right? A lot of business owners talk about scaling, and they're still in that growth mode, and they don't even want to realize it. And nobody in the industry, or very few, talks about it. One of my ex-clients and a very good business and recruitment and placement consultant that I work with, she talks about this very often in her content. I love that she does it. Her and I have been talking about this for 3 or 4 years, so I like to see her being more prevalent, and this is picking up steam as some of her main hooks and messaging into what she does, which is great to see. And then I go on to say, if these are overlooked or forgotten, the business will suffer in scale mode. Not might, it will. It's inevitable. Maybe not exactly when, but it's going to happen. Number 8, and I've been teaching this for over 4 years. I think I just did another live stream on this within the last 3 to 6 months. I would have to look back to be exact. But the CIA method is essential in the business and will always be taught, monitored, and enforced to ensure certain successes and results are being achieved. As anybody who's been following me for a little while knows, the CIA method simply stands for consistency, implementation, and accountability. Now, non-negotiables, and that comes right off of accountability being the word before, because that goes hand in hand. But non-negotiables for each individual, myself included, within the business needs to be clearly and thoroughly demonstrated and executed by said individual in their specific, or in terms of their duties, tasks, activities, and responsibilities within their specific role or position relevant to their skill sets and area of expertise, which means whoever I'm placing in my business, myself included, we should have that person really focused on the role and the duties and the tasks and responsibilities only relevant to their skill set or area of expertise. That way people are always doing something that they're the subject matter expert, they have a passion for it, they love. Too many people end up doing so many aspects of the business that they don't love, that they loathe many times, that they start to have a sour taste. And another reason people quit and fail is they're like, oh, I didn't realize business came with all this other stuff. Well, I show my clients very quickly how to delegate, outsource, automate, how to hand off those menial remedial tasks that, are kind of tedious, right? And you don't enjoy and you don't love. I don't do the stuff I don't love in my business. Luckily, I have a great CFO. I don't have to handle payroll and taxes and profit loss sheets. Now, not to say I don't ever review them, but that's not my main area. I don't love that stuff. I'm glad. I probably would get burnt out if I focused on that stuff every day, right? Number 10, regardless of any situations or outcomes within the business, there are two things that any and every individual has control of every single day, and that's their effort and attitude. I reiterate here, choose wisely which you accept and ultimately project each day. You guys probably see the attitude and the effort that I show up with. Hopefully you guys have seen that consistently over months, weeks, years, depending on how long you've been following me or watching any of my content channel, live streams, groups, etc. But those are super essential. As I say to people, when I wake up, I look at my calendar. I'm like, cool, I got 6 sales calls, 2 fulfillment calls. How many people's lives can I change today? Like, that's kind of my attitude going out into my day, whether it's sales calls, helping people overcome problems, find solutions, enroll them into products that are going to solve their problems and deliver them results. Fulfillment calls, blow people's minds with great new information, implementation and execution on how they can mix that into their current campaigns and objective and what they're focusing on. Makes a huge difference. So after the 10 in business imperative orders, I went on to say, as very similar to our U.S. Constitution, this document and its contents can be amended, adjusted, and added to based on the criteria within regarding the consistent or the constant feedback loop, as well as the core business values and beliefs instilled within the 10 business imperative orders. So I will be adding and amending to as I go, as things are important, but it's not like I'm going to put, number 11, my ideal prospect is XYZ. That's not necessarily your constitution. That's more within your business plan and something that would be for, your offer building worksheet and the other resources that we give to our students and clients to help them dial that stuff in, or the things I work with people one-on-one. So guys, hopefully this was helpful. I'd love to see people kind of, write their own and see how impactful this can be for you. This is not something that I wrote to never share or never review, hence the video. Hence, I've already sent it to some close colleagues. One very high, influential person in this space that saw that and said, man, this is actually great. I was like, cool, man, I'm glad you liked it. It's like 1000%. This is different and refreshing, right? And maybe refreshing is like the opening. Most people probably wouldn't expect that from a digital marketing consulting agency type of company, but that's how I operate and that's how my businesses operate. So just thought this would be cool to share with everybody and look forward